Hello and welcome to some Pauper gameplay of Green-Black Gardens. This is a green-black control deck, base black, that uses the black removal suite and card draw suite to survive into the late game. And Delic can use Avenging Hunter or Thorn of the Black Rose to create a emblem that will repeatedly create advantage into the late game. Thorn of the Black Rose gives a Monarch token, or not a token, a Monarch emblem. Avenging Hunter gives a Initiative emblem, which will let you repeatedly enter the Undercity. The deck's really powerful. It's been tier 1 in Pauper pretty much since the printing of Tithing Blade. Before that, it was a solid choice at like tier 2. It has really good removal, really good card draw. Sweeper is just generally one of the best control decks in the format right now. If you want to skip ahead to the gameplay, if you're already familiar with the deck or the Pauper metagame in general, and I'm going to go through a discussion of like some of the cards in the deck in a little bit more detail, and then we can go into some games. I think I'll just be playing a league today. So, starting with the mana base, it's really slanted towards black because the main deck is almost entirely mono black. We've got 1 Haunted Mire and 4 Khalni Gardens, but we can tutor up the Haunted Mire with Troll of Khazad-dûm, and as long as you have 1 green source, you're pretty much good. Because our only green cards are 1 green pip, and in the main deck that's only 2 Avenging Hunters and literally nothing else. So, really the green splash is for Khalni Gardens, because this is a really strong card in the deck when you have so many sacrifice outlets to draw cards. There's also Witch's Cottage. If you have enough swamps, this is a way to recur threats, and worst case scenario, it's a swamp that enters the battlefield tapped. Blood Fountain is another way to recur threats. It returns 2 creatures from your graveyard to your hand. It also creates a blood token on entry, which is great to sacrifice to the sacrifice an artifact to draw 2 cards effects, or to just sit and play and loot away stuff you don't need. Oftentimes I'll actually sacrifice the blood fountain and keep the blood token around as a looting effect when I don't think I'm going to need to recur threats, save versus burn. Defile is a 1 mana removal spell. Not much more to say there. As long as you control enough swamps, this will kill most things in the format. Ichor Wellspring is a way to gain quite a lot of card advantage in combination with the Deadly Disputer or Fanatical Offering. Lembas is similar but doesn't draw quite as many cards. The upside of Lembas, however, is it digs 2 cards deep on its own and can be sacrificed to gain some life. Cast Down is some more removal. Deadly Dispute, Fanatical Offering, and Reckoner's Bargain are all basically the same thing. You sacrifice a creature or artifact to draw 2 cards and usually get some small upside, creating a treasure token, a map token, or in this case, you gain life equal to the sacrifice permanent mana value. I consider Reckoner's Bargain to be the weakest of them. I've got a 4-3-2 split right now on them. Tithing Blade is another artifact you can sacrifice to these effects, and it's a removal spell. Probably the biggest upgrade we've seen to the deck in the last few sets. We've got 3 Crypt Rats to sweep up the board, as well as a Drowning Sorrow. Crypt Rats also function as a way of reducing your opponent's life total. If you've got even just 1 more life than them, and you have enough mana, you can deal damage equal to your opponent equal to their life total and just kill you both. Kill them by dealing damage to everything equal to the amount of black mana spent. You can also end a game in a draw if that would benefit you for some reason, just by spending enough black mana to kill you both. It does come up sometimes when you can't win a game, but you can end it in a draw. You might as well. Because Magic the Gathering Online handles draws just by restarting the game, so it essentially gives you another chance at trying to win. Thorn of the Black Rose and Avenging Hunter are ways to close out games. Thorn of the Black Rose gives us the Monarch, which means we draw an extra card every turn. If our opponent deals damage to us, we lose the Monarch and they gain it, and we can always get it back by hitting them. But generally speaking, you only want to be playing this when you're fairly confident you can keep the Monarch. Same thing with Avenging Hunter, except instead of it happening on your end step, it happens when you take it and when you, at the start of your turn. And what taking the initiative means is you have a little token called the initiative, works the same as the Monarch for the most part, and whenever at the beginning of your turn and whenever you take the initiative, you go into the Undercity, which is a dungeon. Can I pull up the dungeon information here? Apparently not. Well, the dungeon does a lot of different things, but it's generally quite good. You can put counters on your stuff, create tokens, draw cards, scry. Gives you quite a lot of options. One of the modes is just deal 5 damage to target player, so that's a pretty fast way to close out games. It's just like put 2+1/+1 counters on Avenging Hunter, swing in for 7, and then dome them for 5 on the next turn. And then finally, Troll of Khazad-dûm is an additional 3 threats or 3 lands, depending on what you need in the specific moment when you draw it. It's also pretty nice because it can set you up with enough swamps, or it can tutor up the Witch's Cottage so you can start recurring stuff. You can do stuff like cycle Troll, get Witch's Cottage, play Witch's Cottage, put Troll on top, sacrifice, your Ichor Wellspring to a Deadly Dispute, redraw the Troll, play the Troll, which is pretty cool. And then that's pretty much the whole deck. Out of the sideboard, we get some answers mostly to specific powerful decks in the format that we don't have a great matchup game 1. Combo decks are pretty difficult for us when our removal is a blank. So specifically Infect Storm is almost unwinnable, but we try and win still. We bring in 3 Duresses and some relics. Troublemaker Ouphe hits artifacts and enchantments. Very good versus anything that plays artifacts and enchantments, and it's an exile-based effect, so you can kill indestructible artifact lands with it. Weather the Storm, just straight up a 4 here, because we have no interest in losing to Burn. So we're going to play 4 Weather the Storms, and our matchup versus Burn is insane. It's very favored. Fangren Marauder is more so for aggro decks that are a little slower. Boros, Bully, Affinity, that sort of thing. Glitters, anything where we can stick to some play, and they're just not going to be able to erase that. We can gain upwards of 15 life a turn, and I've had games where they have like a 30-30 creature, no, maybe not 30, like a 10-10 creature from Glitters, and been bashing, and then I've just been gaining like 20 life a turn, and I just outrace like some creature with all the glitters on it, which is kind of crazy. And then finally, we've got 3 copies of Relic of Progenitus. This is just a catch-all for graveyard decks. I've seen decks like One Land Spy in Pauper recently. It's good versus Cycle Storm. It's good versus the Terror decks. Really anything that wants to use its graveyard, this is a good catch-all to hit that. Although it does step on Witch's Cottage and Blood Fountain a little bit, because its second mode exiles all graveyards. So it's something to keep in mind is, I think a lot of the times when you're versus a deck that's like a pretty focused combo deck, you can cut the Blood Fountains for the Relic. And then when you're versus just like another, like some control deck, and you want the relics, you can just keep both in, because Blood Fountain's going to be good eventually, and you can just be patient with it. Or you can just use the first mode of Relic until you've used your Blood Fountain. Anyway, let's get into some games, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, first game of our league here, and we've opened a hand with no lands, so I am going to have to ship this. Let me just check the game log here. We are on the play, and our opponent's kept 7. This hand has a garden into an Ichor Wellspring, some removal, some sweepers. As long as we can find another land, we've got the Wellspring for that. I think I'm going to keep this and put back the Crypt Rats. Drown in Sorrow is a cheaper way to sweep up the board. Not quite as powerful, but in the early game, it's nice to just have that Drown in Sorrow to kill like 2 creatures. I don't want to turn that on. A lot of these decks do play free interaction. My version doesn't, but I don't want them to know that they don't have free interaction. Okay, our opponent's off to a good start here with a Goblin Tomb Raider, but I think this is a quite good matchup for us. So going into this next turn, I'm going to use the Khalni Gardens just to chump block, because I already have lots of things to sacrifice. And next turn I can Tithing Blade to kill their token. If they go wide with like a goblin with the spell that makes a bunch of token goblins, Kuldoth Rebirth, then that's probably the scariest thing they could do, but I do have the Drown in Sorrow for that. So I think the plan right now is to just try and trade 1-for-1 with removal, and hopefully we find some lands. But yeah, I have no interest in taking an additional 2 from the Goblin Tomb Raider. I'm just going to chump block here. Okay, I did find an additional land, so I'm going to Tithing Blade this turn, and then either Tithing Blade or Wellspring next turn, depending on what we draw. And then having Haunted Mire coming down next turn means that I'm going to have 3 mana going into turn 4 at the very least, and I will be able to Drown in Sorrow if they go wide next turn. I'm just a little worried if they go wide with like a bunch of creatures this turn, but should be fine. Okay, Goblin Blaster doesn't have haste, even if they do sacrifice something. Chain Lightning is fine. They're just dumping their hand out, which is, what Burn does, turn their hand into damage as quickly as they can. I'm just going to Tithing Blade here, and then pass back to them. Of course, playing on my land as well. Okay, opponent's sacrificing their Synth, so presumably they don't have much else to do. And they hit a Bushwhacker off this. If they don't have a land, this Bushwhacker will just be exiled forever, because this is until end of turn. Okay, they have a land, but still not getting great value out of this Bushwhacker since they can't give their stuff haste. I could just Drown in Sorrow this turn, but I think I'm pretty interested in casting a Deadly Dispute and then using the treasure to play the Ichor Wellspring out. Okay, I hit a land, so I don't need to use the treasure. I could also just play Drown now. I think that's probably best. Try and mitigate as much damage as I can. This does mean I no longer have a Drown. Okay, that's great. Lembas is great here because it gains me some life and can start to stabilize. As I was saying, it means I no longer have a sweeper, so if they do go wide with a bunch of goblin tokens, then that is pretty scary. But I think if they had the rebirth, they would have used it already. They've got 3 cards left in their hand. Fold in Epicure and making a Samurai token. They hit a land off their Synth. Alright, I'm going to start with, I can go Ichor Wellspring, sack Ichor Wellspring, or I can go Lembas, sack Lembas to itself in response, and then gain my life. But I don't think I'm likely to die next turn. They can hit me for 3, and then if they have like Galvanic Blast. That's another 4. 2 Galvanic Blasts I'm dead to, right? 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, I'm going to start with the Ichor Wellspring and see what we... And then if I don't hit anything, I'll just play the Deadly Dispute and then use the Witch's Cottage and the Treasure to maybe play a removal spell. But this is going to draw 3 cards due to Ichor Wellspring's second, or when this is put into the graveyard effect. Okay, so I found a Tithing Blade and a Cast Down. I'm going to play the Cast Down at instant speed in case that matters. They might go for a Bushwhacker on the basis of having 2 other creatures. And if I can hide that information, that they actually only have 1 creature here, that potentially makes them misplay. But I think I'm just going to kill the Samurai token once they go to... Okay, so they did play at a Bushwhacker. I don't know if it mattered, but it's possible they wouldn't have done that if I'd killed the Samurai during my turn. So just trying to hide information from them. I'm going to take 4 here, and then keep trying to stabilize. 1, 2... Okay. This is interesting. I think I'm going to play a Lembas and sack it right away to shuffle it back into the deck and try and find another Lembas and just start trying to gain more life than they can deal damage. And if I find an untapped land, I can also play the Tithing Blade. I'm just a little bit worried about getting killed by like Bolt or something. Like Burn's a scary deck. They could have a lot of damage sort of out of nowhere here. Alright, I'll play the Garden, and then I still have lots of stuff to sack, so I'm pretty happy to just use the plant token to prevent 1 damage here. Yeah, they're just swinging in. I'll block there. Spending a Tithing Blade just to kill a 1/1 doesn't feel great, but if I can't find a sweeper, then it's probably what I have to do. Same as last turn, I'm just going to use Lembas to start gaining life here. If they're hitting me for 2 a turn and I'm getting 3, I am outgaining them, but the problem is, of course, they're drawing a card every turn, which means they're potentially drawing towards a bunch of bolt effects. Okay, Crypt Rats sweeps up this board, so I'm going to take that, and then use Fanatical Offering to try and find a land here. So Tithing Blade. I did find a land and a 1-mana removal spell, so if they go for a Bushwhacker, I will kill one of their creatures, but I'd rather use the Crypt Rats to sweep up the board if I can. This is a little tough. I think I just want to prevent as much damage as I possibly can. I know it's not great in terms of card, like trading 1 for 1, but you just don't really get the option to play for card advantage when you're fighting a deck that tries to dump out their hand this aggressively. I might be dead anyway here. Alright, doesn't look like I'm dead quite yet, which is always good news. I'm going to start with another Fanatical Offering, looking for a Lembas or similar. Just going to play the Wellspring and see what I draw. And then if I don't hit anything good, I'll just, play the Blade. And then bluff removal. They've got 3 cards in hand, drawing up to 4, which could easily be upwards of 9 to 12 damage. Then again, they haven't done anything in a few turns, so it's possible they're just sitting on a bunch of lands to lead away to blood tokens or something. I'm going to start by trying to draw some cards here. Reckoner's Bargain is great. That's a way to gain 4 life if I want to. Although I don't really want to play into them having a haste creature and taking the monarch from me. I'm going to play with the Gardens and then a Crypt Rat, and I can use the Crypt Rat to gain 3 life. I'm missing on a card by not sacking the Wellspring. I'm going to cash in my map token before I do anything else. Crypt Rat's on top, put them in my graveyard. It's not super useful here. And then I'm going to play out this Crypt Rats and pass the turn. I can either Reckoner's Bargain the Wellspring or the Crypt Rats. I might want to do that on their upkeep before they draw into trying to kill me. If they put a burn spell in my face, I'll do it in response. If they don't, then feeling reasonably safe here. Alright, I'm going to sack my Crypt Rats here. If they kill me in response, they kill me in response. We can go to game 2. Alright, looks like I'm not dead yet. Not quite dead yet. Feeling much better. Swamp. Reckoner's Bargain, sacking the Wellspring. Here we see the strength of Reckoner's Bargain, just drawing cards and gaining life. There we go. Okay. We should be safe to start pulling ahead here into like some real stability, even if their hand is a bunch of kill effects, a bunch of murder. Witch's Cottage is not particularly helpful, and then with 4 mana left, I don't really want to play with Thorn. Just doesn't seem necessary to play into them having a way to go wide around my plant token. So I'll make my blood token, discard a swamp to draw a new card, and great, we found some removal. Keep the plant token back to block a creature with haste, because they could potentially bushwhack out a bunch of small creatures with haste if they have a Kuldotha Rebirth plus Goblin Bushwhacker. Synthesizer is some card advantage for them to dig into more removal, and the Festivities is not particularly good versus me. They have 3 artifacts, this is going to deal 4, but I don't have a way to mitigate that, so alright. Sacking the Synth now, hitting another Galvanic Blast, but they only have 2 artifacts now. So if they blast me here, they're not really getting full value off of it. Playing on the Festivities, and then looks like they're playing the blast as well. Yeah. So this is just going to do 2. So I'm back down to 9. If their hand is bolt, and they draw another bolt off the top, that is exactly 9. So gaining if I have a way to gain 1 life here, then I'm feeling much safer than if I don't. I could flip the Tithing Blade, or I can just play out like a troll. I'm going to start with a Blood Fountain and then just loot away one of these Thorns. I am probably approaching the point in the game where I can play out Thorn safely. It's just I'm worried about them going wide with 3 tokens and then giving them all haste. If I can put a Crypt Rats into play, then I would feel a little more safe. Or if I just have a few more blockers, like I have it. Well, we'll see. I can also just play Troll. Like, that's a pretty fast way to win a game. Alright, this is going to be a ton of cards. Just Ancestral Recall off the top, and then Perfect, more removal. And there we go, we found the Lembas. So now I don't die, even if their hand is a bunch of burn. Sacking it in response because I would like to the Scry 1 effect to actually do something, and hitting another Lembas would be useful. Sorry, it doesn't matter if you sack for the Scry 1, but it does if you want to hit Lembas, you should sack in response. I don't need a Witch's Cottage, and I think I'm good to pass here. 12 life means they would generally need 4 cards to kill me, or to use creatures to kill me, and I have lots of removal in hand. Implement Combustion represents 1 damage that doesn't cost a card, and it turns Galvanic Blasts into 4s. I mean, if they have 3 Galvanic Blasts and enough artifacts, it is enough to... Okay, Seal of Fire, sure. I'm happy to see a Seal of Fire, because that does 2 instead of 3, which is sort of par in their deck. Could Blood Fountain back some stuff. Get backed 2 rats. And then once I have a rat in play, I feel better about using the troll, or sorry, using the Thorn. Play out a rat, so I have a way to sweep up the board, and then I'm going to take a turn off here to flip my Tithing Blade, exiling my Thorn from my graveyard, and this gives me a way to gain life over time. I think at this point I have pretty much won this game. I'm at 15 minutes on my clock because I'm not used to narrating as I play. Versus Burn, it's not really a huge deal, but maybe I should be focusing on playing a little more than keeping up a running monologue. Playing out of Gardens, and then sacking the token, draw 2, and then I'm just going to start trying to put a clock into play. If I give them enough time, they probably will find a way to kill me here. I'm happy to swing at this point because Crypt Rats allows me to sweep even if they do make a bunch of haste creatures. And if they want to spend their Seal of Fire to kill my Crypt Rats and then try and go wide around Troll, I have a bunch of removal, so I can kind of blow them out if they go for that, because they'll be spending their Seal to do something other than point it at my face, which I'll be gaining another point of life here, going from 12 to 13, which is a pretty big deal, because if they have 3 deal 4 effects or 4 deal 3 effects, then I'm now safe from that. With everything, let's just start trying to kill them here. They might just be trying to play for time, but post board I think I have a huge advantage because I have so much life gain into the sideboard. And I feel like the game 1 is pretty good as well, because they're a version that's playing stuff like In the Festivities, which is really bad versus my deck. I mean, it's great versus fairies. There's a lot of situations where it is good. I'm not saying it's wrong to be main decking it. It's just specifically versus what I'm doing, it feels pretty bad. I do have lethal here with Crypt Rats, but I don't want them to kill me in response. So I'll wait for them to like point a Seal of Fire at my face or something similar. I might be being too cautious here, and maybe it's right to just jam the Crypt Rats, deal 8 to both players, but we'll see. I like the position I'm in here. I'll be swinging for lethal next turn. I don't think there's any reason to try and risk dealing so much damage to both players. And they've scooped it up. Okay, so whether the Storm can come in, Fangren Marauder is sort of a maybe. It is a little bit slow, but it is a way to close out the game, which, as you saw, it could be a little difficult to close out the game without putting ourselves at risk to a sudden flurry of burn. Troublemaker Ouphe is not very good. I don't like Duress. There is an argument for Duress, like bringing in 1. I've thought about it quite a bit. Talked to some other players that play this deck a lot, and I've done testing. I think it's probably wrong. Love to hear your opinion in the comments if you guys want to talk about this, but it's a bad top deck, and a lot of the times what you're doing is you're cutting your top end to go lower to the ground, and then you get into a top deck war with the burn deck, and if you're drawing Duresses, that really sucks, and at best it's like a healing salve, but then the counter argument for that is maybe a healing salve is actually good versus burn. Anyway, obvious stuff is whether the Storm comes in. I think what I've been doing in the past is cutting 2 Thorns. I've heard people say you should cut Tithing Blade, but I think that's wrong. I think you want all of your removal. You definitely don't need Blood Fountain, so you can go Thorns, 2 Thorns, 2 Blood Fountains out, and then if you want to bring in Marauder, then you need to cut 1 more thing. You can either cut 1 Avenging Hunter or 1 Thorn, so it's like diversifying your threats versus the one that actually closes out the game faster. Like versus Burn, you don't care about really drawing a extra card a turn, you just want to close out the game once you turn that corner. I usually go down the Thorn to bring in the Marauder. They do similar things, they both close out the game, but Marauder's more expensive, but it does it in such a way that you're not likely to die to burn. I think this is what I'm cutting. The only other thing is, like, do you want Duress over one Hunter? Which I don't think is correct. But the question of whether you bring in Duress versus burn is a question older than I am, probably. It's probably I mean, how old is Magic now? I'm sure since Alpha, people have been arguing over whether or not they should bring in their discard versus... Although I guess they would have called it Scred at the time. I'll run it like this. We'll see how it goes. They're going to be on the play again, but as we saw in that first game, this matchup is pretty great for us. It's just, our deck is just full of removal, full of life gain. This is one of our best maps. This hand is wonderful. It's, without the Weather the Storm, it would be a little awkward because we don't really have any way to use the Fanatical Offering, but with Weather the Storm, oftentimes even having like a 1 Weather the Storm in your opening hand makes this like a nightmare for burn. Because if they ever double spell, I can just gain 9 life in response. And you can sort of think about life gain like it's card draw versus burn, because each point of life you gain is an extra card they have to draw to kill you, right? So if you gain 12 life, that's potentially 4 more cards they have to look at. I have the question here of whether I want to Defile the Epicure or cycle the Troll. Reckless Impulse hitting 2 burn spells. This could imply that they don't have... Like, I think if they had another creature-based threat, they would have played it there. So I'm just going to Defile the Epicure now. And then cycle Troll for a tapped land and play the tapped land this turn. And then I can hold up Weather the Storm. Shame I couldn't hold up Weather the Storm this turn because they're very likely to cast Seal of Fire, Galvanic Blast, and possibly even a creature. But I'll find a point where to get 6 to 12 life off Weather the Storm, and that's all you really need. They've instead chosen to play Experimental Synthesizer into Tomb Raider, so they're either not going to play Seal of Fire or not play Galvanic Blast. Probably, yeah, alright. Hitting me for 4, then hitting me for 2. They lose out on their Seal of Fire. But yeah, that would have been a lot of life off a potential Weather the Storm. So I can either Weather the Storm here, like just end step Weather the Storm, but they could play around it just by hitting me and then passing. Or I can play Ichor Wellspring and try and find a removal for the Goblin Tomb Raider. I guess it comes down to whether I think my opponent is good at burn, because I think a competent burn player just wouldn't play spells into an open green-black versus this deck. So I'm going to assume that my opponent will play optimally, and then I'm just going to play my Weather or my Ichor Wellspring. I might be dead here, but giving myself the chance of drawing something better, and this also sets up a Weather the Storm that doesn't rely on them casting spells for next turn, because I can pass to their turn, and if they don't do anything, then I can just Deadly Dispute plus Weather the Storm. They play Epicure, which represents 1 damage and possibly a card, and uh-oh, that's a lot of damage. Alright, I do have Crypt Rats, like, in my hand here, but still, ouch. I can Crypt Rats for 1, but that doesn't actually kill all of their stuff. I'm going to play the Swamp, and then they have exactly 4 damage on board here, so they do need to cast a spell to kill me. And if they do that pre-combat, then I'm feeling pretty good. If they're smart, they'll wait until post-combat. Yeah, looks like that's what they're doing. And I can't afford to let these hit me, because then if I do go for my Weather, they're going to respond with their burn spell. So I'm going to cast my Deadly Dispute now. Ooh, we hit a Defile. Okay. Can Defile this, and then if I take the 2, then I will be dead to a burn spell in response to my Weather if I try and like wait and Weather end step. So I'm just going to do this now, so I don't die to like Lightning Bolt or a similar effect. When I say Lightning Bolt in this matchup, I mean, I think most players understand. I mean anything that is like Lightning Bolt. I'm not talking about the specifically Lightning Bolt. When I say like I'm dead to Bolt, I mean I'm dead to Bolt and kill fast, yada yada. Okay, that was a really good draw. So now I can play Witch's Cottage. I don't really want the Troll here, so I'm just not going to use the ability. And then I'm going to play out Drown in Sorrow, put the removal spell on top, and I don't really have anything to do with my mana here. I don't really want to waste a Tithing Blade on nothing. But yeah, now they have to get through. So without Weather the Storm, they would pretty clearly be in a winning position here, but with it, instead of being at like a 1 life, I'm now at like more than a 1 life. Truly, I am a math genius. No one else has ever thought of bringing in Weather the Storm versus Burn. I'm the first person to do it. I've revolutionized the metagame. Okay, I'm going to play out the Crypt Rats here, and then pass back. One cool trick I could do here is if they play like a 1-1 and go to pass the turn, I can use Rats for 1 and then sack it in response. Alright, I'm dead to Blast and Bolt or similar. Storm counts 3 here. If I hit exactly Weather the Storm off the top on the Deadly Dispute, I can gain a bit of life. Alright, I didn't hit it, but I can Defile here, and then Fanatical Offering going into the next turn. Ooh, that is very good. I'm just going to do that main phase before they can try and kill me in response or something. There's no reason to get greedy here. Getting 9 life, I'm almost back up to full. Be sitting at 16, it's unlikely they can kill me with 3 cards. They pop their Implement of Combustion. Nothing else though. Alright. I don't really feel safe just jamming Hunter here, so I am just going to start gaining 6 life. Or, sorry, 3 life, and looking to find their Lembas and gain 6 life. I was getting ahead of myself there. That does cycle down 1 more card, and if I don't really have anything else to sacrifice to a draw effect, so I do kind of need that. So play out this Wellspring, and then... Okay, I'll swamp. So I'll hold up removal this turn. Maybe I'm being too cautious, and I should just be like jamming Hunters into play, but I'm pretty worried about them going like Rebirth, Goblin, Bushwhacker. They send 2 bolts at my face here, which is interesting. Alright, I draw Lembas for turn, so I'm going to do a repeat of last turn where I just play Lembas, sack it in response, look for another Lembas. I did find another Lembas, or possibly the same Lembas. There's no way to know. I'll play it and sack it again, getting 6 life this time. And I found a Crypt Rats, which is going to be useful because the one way I lose this game is them making really wide board and swinging in for a huge chunk of damage. And if I can put a Crypt Rats in play and have it sit and play for a turn, then I would feel fairly safe about playing out an Avenging Hunter, because then if they go wide, I can ping for 1. Plus, I'll have a lot of removal. But if I'm patient enough here, they will eventually be forced to start playing on creatures again. Smash to Smithereens on Ichor Wellspring. Interesting. I don't think it's correct to bring in Smash to Smithereens versus this deck, because all of my artifacts are unimportant sacrifice fodder, so you're essentially just bringing in a 2-mana Lightning Bolt, or like a 2-mana Lava Spike, if it hit anything other than, can't hit anything other than players, but, I mean, in that case, it was literally worse, because it gave me a free card, but I'm not going to fault my opponent. Like, maybe there is definitely an argument to bring it in. I'm not saying it's, like, objectively incorrect. Maybe they don't have anything else to bring in for, like, maybe they have a lot of other bad cards in their main deck, and they don't have a ton of things. Oh, I should play my Crypt Rat. I get bogged down in the philosophy of bringing in Smash to Smithereens, and suddenly I start making misplays. That's definitely a weakness of myself as a player, is I get a little too focused on, like, the large-scale implications of of whether or not it's right to bring in a card, and I don't focus on the game I'm actually playing. Okay, I'm going to kill the Epicure with Cast down here, and then jam Avenging Hunter, unless I draw something that changes that. I don't think that changes my plan here. It's a great draw. It means I'm much more safe, too. And they can do. But I think at this point of the game, I have just 1, and it just comes down to closing out. I have 8 minutes, though, but it's not like I'm in a rush to close out this game. Even if I do lose this, 8 minutes is plenty of time to play out a game. If they have, like, specifically Bolt Crypt Rats, untap, play Rebirth, play Bushwhacker, they could take the Undercity back, then I just take it back on my next turn. And that requires, like, a very specific series of cards. And it requires them playing removal on Crypt Rats instead of sending that up at my face. I'm not that Weather the Storm just to gain 3 life here. I'll wait. I can get more value off of it. Go into the Forge up my Avenging Hunter. If they want to kill in response, it'll hopefully take them 2 removal spells. Okay, sure. There's an argument for forging up the Rat there, and then using it to deal damage to both players every turn. But versus Burn, I'm not really too interested in that. Scry that to the top. I was probably supposed to sack the Lembas there. Whatever. Go right into the trap, hit them for 5. They have 3 cards in hand. They would require, like, Galvanic Blast times 3 to kill me here, and they've already used 2 blasts, so they literally can't have that. I will play out my Tithing Blade just to increase the size of my Weather the Storm. Gain a bunch of life here, 15 life, and I'm sitting at 30, 29, near 30, and I've got the Lembas as well. Yeah, okay, they're done. So I think that was a good showcase of how powerful this deck can be when its removal lines up well. Like, this is probably our best matchup in terms of, like, other tier 1, tier 2 decks. And a lot of the time there, it just didn't feel particularly close. Like, game 1 was close, but game 2 there, they had, I guess, 1 opportunity to really push in for damage on that turn where they went wide. I think it was, like, turn 3 or 4. But yeah, once I resolved that Weather the Storm, that, like, first Weather the Storm, the rest of the game was just, like, very clearly in my favor the whole way through. It's a tough matchup, and I don't think bringing in Smash to Smithereens is particularly helpful. I'll talk a little bit about this before I go on to the next game. Thinking about, like, what artifacts they can hit with this, I think most people that play this deck do cut their Blood Fountains versus Burn. You don't bring in Relic versus Burn that I know of, so you're not hitting these, and you're not main decking Smash to Smithereens, right? So if they were bringing it in because they didn't have anything else good to bring in and they needed to cut stuff, that makes sense. So I'm not trying to belittle my opponent here. There's lots of reasons why maybe it was correct to bring it in. I could also just be straight up wrong. Like, I don't want to. Maybe killing the Consuming Spectre. I always assumed this was Consuming Scepter, or Spectre, but it's not. I don't know what a Sepulture is. Anyway, like maybe it's right to have the Smash Smithereens to kill that, but I mean, it doesn't seem good to me. It really doesn't, because like I got an argument with someone on Reddit about this actually, which I mean, made two mistakes there really, getting into an argument with someone on Reddit and being on Reddit in the first place. Like if you want feedback and advice on playing decks like this, I think the best thing you can do is find someone else who plays it either through MTGO or through like Discord and just chat with them. Because I find people on Reddit are just like very confident, and then you ask them like, okay, how many reps do you have on the deck, or how long have you been playing Pauper for? And they're like, oh, I actually don't play Pauper at all. It's just my guess. You're like, okay, then why did you insist? You know, like I'll make a post and I'll be like, I have this many hours on the deck and all this stuff. Yeah, well, I've heard a burn, and I'm pretty sure they should always burn Smithereens versus artifact decks. And it's like, okay, but all the artifacts I have are either really bad targets, or if I have mana up, I can sack them in response. And I'm holding mana up a lot. I don't want to... I've talked about this now for so long that it's obvious that I'm just upset because I don't know if I'm right or not. So that's definitely the reason why, right? Like it does come down to, I'm a little paranoid that I'm wrong on this, and I don't want to be wrong on this. But I don't think it's right to bring Math the Smithereens versus this deck. If you're like an experienced burn player, you can go down in the comments and tell me how stupid I'm being. And like I said, it's possible that their whole sideboard just doesn't do anything versus me, and they need to cut like the festivities, and they don't have anything else they want to cut or bring in. So it's like, well, bring in my 2-mana lightning bolt or 2-mana lava spike or whatnot. But yeah, it doesn't seem particularly good. All right, well, on to the next game, and thanks for watching. All right, on the play versus Lucas Cat with Green-Black Gardens. This is my second league game. Troll on 1, or I can swamp, cycle Troll, untap, play the swamp off the Troll. Like I wouldn't probably be getting it. I would probably get an untapped land just so I could cast down. Or I guess I could get the tap land and then Defile. I need to top deck like a draw spell, but this hand's not bad. It's like probably the worst hand I would keep, or the best hand I should actually move mulliganing. But okay, this is Blue-Black Terror. I'm gonna get a tapped land and set up my mana, because I think they're unlikely to be playing on creature turn 2. This could be Terror, this could just be Blue-Black Control, this could be Fairies, but if they are playing a creature this turn, it's likely one that Defile will kill. Okay, there's not doing anything. And I did draw another land, which is great. I'm not gonna run a Crypt Rats out here. Cycling an Ash Barrens, getting a basic swamp, sure. They play their basic swamp. I'm gonna play a Wellspring out here, see if they want to counter this. Okay, they do. Unfortunately, I don't have any other lands here, so if they had like the read that I didn't have any lands, then it was probably correct. I mean, in theory, they didn't have a way to do that, but maybe it's just a good guess. Or putting Drowning Sword in their hand. Drowning Sword is mostly a dead card here. I'm gonna Defile this. Alright, just straight up resolved. Well, I need to be doing something with my mana, so run out of Crypt Rats here. And then my hope is that they spend a removal spell on this because they think I'm sitting here with a bunch of sack to draw effects. Yeah, alright, get to use them, Crypt Rats. If they're willing to do that again, that would be wonderful. Ooh, but I do have Lembas here. If this resolves, it's so good. Yeah. Well, at least it did a counterspell. Yeah, this is one of the weaknesses of this deck is if you don't get your card draw engines going, you do not play very many lands. And they have Lore and Reveal to refill their whole hand here. Okay, there's a Witch's Cottage. I'm going to play out the Crypt Rats, see if they want to counter this. And then I'm not going to put Crypt Rats on top of my deck. I'll put Troll on top because I want to land anyway. So one of the advantages of Troll is you can recur it with Witch's Cottage if you're just looking to hit your next land drop. And then if they go to kill my Crypt Rats, I can ping everything for 1 in response. Does reducing the player's life totals benefit me here? Probably. Agony Warp is interesting. I haven't seen that in a ton of decks. I guess this means it's like a very dedicated blue-black control deck and not like a Turbo Terror type build. Maybe I'm reading too much into that, but I haven't seen self-mill effects, so this might just be blue-black control. Probably still plays Terror at the top end, or Gurmag Angular or whatever. I think Terror is just stronger than Gurmag Angular though. Okay, yeah, here comes a Terror. But we have the Tithing Blade for this, so it's not terribly concerning. I'm going to cycle Troll for an untapped land. They know I have Troll anyway. It's not like... I don't need another land after this. I could have went and Could have went and got another Witch's Cottage, put the Troll back on top. But I think the potential upside of drawing into any card draw spell is really high, and I can already play out pretty much my whole hand with what I have. They bounce their Bojuka Bog back, which means that if I don't draw anything else, I can just flip Tithing Blade because they're going to exile it anyway. They're going to exile Troll anyway. Play out Gardens. This is likely to come down to the clock mattering, so I am trying to play a little bit faster than I probably normally would versus something like Burn. So sorry if I'm not narrating a ton. But I have the Spectre in play, which will slowly win the game if they don't do anything else. I mean, it's not really a win condition, but it forces them to do something proactive. Replant the Bajuka Bog, which I don't think they would do if they had another land, but maybe they would, maybe they want to. Or maybe they have a second Bajuka Bog, right? Extract Confession makes me sacrifice a creature. I've been considering playing Extract Confession, but I don't think I want it in this deck. I think the decks that don't have another way to make use of their graveyard might be wanting it, but I don't think it's particularly good in this build of the deck. Okay, they're taking the Monarch. In response to them drawing this card, I'm going to try and kill the Thorn, and if they want to fight over this, I'm pretty happy with that. If I draw a Thorn, well, it's unlikely to resolve, but maybe? I can hope. I'm going to sack my Consuming Spectre here to try and draw some cards. This is pretty likely to just get countered, though. I've been behind pretty much this whole game. It was probably correct to mulligan that hand, but I'll keep playing this out. At the very least, try and use up some other clock so that they don't have an advantage going into game 2. That's very scary. I will try and kill that in response to the draw. I'll just pay for that. Snuffing out their own creature to make another 1/1, sure. I'll play this out and flip it, and then force them to actually progress their game plan. I don't think I'm going to be able to win this game, but at the very least I can reduce the advantage they have on the clock, like I said. So I'm going to be F6ing through most turns here, and just playing as aggressively as I can to try and slow down how quickly they can kill me. They take the Monarch again, that doesn't do anything because they already have it. You can't be the Monarch twice. You can't be like the king of 2 different countries. Or queen. Non-binary dictator. I don't know. Just kill this now, and then F6. Murmuring Mystic, and then that's gonna kill me really fast, unfortunately. This is the end for us. So very sad. But I'm sure we'll get them in game 2 and 3. Oh, here we go. Tithing Blade. Passing back to them, they're gonna a bunch of spells here. Augur of Bolas, they look at some cards. Reveal Unexpected Fangs, sure. Another Augur, revealing Counterspell. Unexpected Fangs, sure. Again, a life off my Spectre, draw a cast down. If I play this, they're just gonna counter it, and that's gonna increase their clock, but if they go for a end step cantrip, they didn't, but I was hoping they would go for like a series of cantrips on my end step and I would get to cast down. I am just gonna pass through here. Another Terror, sure. They draw. Discarding the hand size, they discard a Snuff Out. I gain 1. Drew into a Bargain, which I will cast. Drawing into a Lembas, which I'll play on sack. If they're not countering this, that means I think they only have 1 counter and they want to make sure their Mystic stays in play. Because I think if they had multiple counter spells, they would be aggressively using them on everything I play, right? Just to increase their clock. Or, not their literal clock, the number of turns it takes for them to kill me. Hard casting a Snuff Out, and then I'll pass. Play a land and swing out. I'll take the damage. Going to 10, I'm dead next turn. And that's going to be game. Alright, a thorough beating from blue-black control here. Out of the board, I get to bring in Duresses. Relics are like a maybe. Marauder is another threat, but I don't think I want Marauder. I mean, there's that, like, gain 40 life and sit there, and if they can't kill you, they can deck, but I don't think that's our plan. So, I think I do want the Relics, but I don't think I want to cut the Bloodfounds. Drown and Sorrows are a good thing to start with. I don't need those, they just don't really do anything. Defiles and Cast Downs are a little awkward, because 1-for-1 removal is not particularly good on most of their threats. I want to keep in all my Thorns and all my Hunters, those are very important. I want the Trolls, because those are additional lands. I think my worst removal spells are probably the Cast Downs, because they cost more. And that, like, 1 mana difference is pretty significant when you have to be paying the ward on terrors. And then Reckoner's Bargain's a little mediocre, but I think I want to keep all of my draw effects in. Go down to like 5 targeted removal spells, plus the 4 Tithing Blades and the Crypt Rats. That lets me bring in 2 of my 3 relics. This seems pretty reasonable. The question is just, would I prefer a relic over a cast down? Relic can just cycle on its own, and it can start the chains with the Deadly Disputes and stuff. I just feel like most of the time cast down is not particularly useful here. Alright, I'll run it like this. This hand is fine. If I draw any land, I can play Thorn. If I draw like any card draw spells, I need, like if I draw a Lembas or something. Okay. This hand is similar to before, where it's like not incredible. Like maybe I should be mulliganing hands like this. I'm not gonna turn 1 to rest them here. I'm gonna wait use my Duress to push through a counterspell. Like, there is that chance, like, I spike a Ponder and mana screw them or something, but don't want chat, I wanted a game log. They did not shuffle their Ponder, so they like what they see, which is another good reason not to Duress them. I'm going to play my Haunted Mire this turn. Take it slow. If I turn 3 Duress, I can turn 4 Thorn, and then if I wait, then I can turn 5 do both. But drawing another Thorn here, I think I'm just going to try and clear the way for Thorn next turn. They're brainstorming in response to hide. They're important. Sure. I feel like there's enough density of non-creature spells that Duress is still likely to hit something, and forcing out an awkward brainstorm is not meaningless. Okay, I don't see a black source here. Rotten Reunion cast down Unexpected Fangs, and then their own Thorn and a Stormbound Geist. I think I just take the cast down. Like everything else there I can sort of play around. Spell Pierce is pretty easy to play around. Unexpected Fangs is useless. Rotten Reunion they can flash back. Okay, they're just playing out their Stormbound Geist. I don't think I can afford to run Thorn like directly into like all the stuff they have. Like if I defile this, untap cast down, then I feel like they might run out their Thorn if they have a black source. Well, okay, wait. Cast down kills terror right now, so I should defile in case I don't hit another land and they play out like a terror. So they've used Geist and they're not doing anything. Okay. Well, I guess I'm just gonna run up my Thorn. Sure, counterspell. So it looks like they hid the counterspell with the brainstorm. They're passing back. I'll do this again. And if they have another counterspell, okay, sure. Still, they're missing land drops, and albeit so am I, but we'll see. Okay, big snake. And I can't kill it without playing into the Spell Pierce here, which is very unfortunate. If they tap out at any point here, go for the removal on the Tolarian Terror, but I would not like to play this. Sure. And they're passing the turn. I found a Defile. I can now kill... I still can't... No, I can't kill Terror with Defile at all, so it's not particularly helpful. Maybe I was supposed to not be jamming Thorns into open mana and I was supposed to be waiting. They're playing another Brainstorm here. They did find some black mana. Ooh, okay. I'm going to start trying to get my card draw engine online. I will pay for that. And it resolves. Alright. Still not feeling great about this position, considering they have a Thorn in hand and lethal on board. So I do need to kill Tolarian Terror this turn, or gain 1 life from, like, a Reckoner's Bargain. Alright, they've used the Spell Pierce. I don't know what else is in their hand, but I do know they have Rotten Reunion, which can potentially deal 4 to me, which is a little scary. I'm going to cast down this now, see if they have the counterspell. Alright, great. I'll pass the turn, and if they tap out for Thorn, then I will Deadly Dispute, untap, Defile, and then hopefully find my own Thorn. Oh, are they just going to try and push damage? Interesting. Sure. I don't think I'm going to spend a removal spell on that. If they have a Crypt Rats, they don't have any black mana to use with it. I don't think they would play Crypt Rat in this deck. It's so focused on being almost entirely mono blue. Alright, they didn't have a counterspell last turn, and I want to keep my velocity going here. Perfect. Khalni Garden blocks pretty well, and then play out Wellspring. I should have done that in the other order in case they draw. Like, it gives me more information. Drawing first is usually correct. Okay, they exile Thorn from my graveyard, that's fine. If they swing, I'll just block with my plant token and then sack it. And if they spend a removal spell on my plant token, I am ecstatic. Like, they might just be trying to kill me with Unexpected Fangs. And by Unexpected Fangs, I mean completely expected. We've seen Rotten Reunion. They didn't shuffle after their Brainstorm, so I still have a decent amount of knowledge about their hand. Okay, just playing Thorn, sure. Do you want to swing with a zombie? No? Alright. Alright. I'm going to Reckoner's Bargain the Wellspring, and then Deadly Dispute. Treasure token? Okay, I don't have a way to take back the initiative here, but I think I can let them have the initiative for a turn. I'll just play out 2 blades, kill their 2 creatures. Like, spending a real spell on the zombie, it doesn't feel great, but... and then go land, play out Lembas, don't need that. Alright, I have 2 Avenging Hunters here, and I can try and get one to resolve. Mind Stab, entered the exile zone. Target player discards 3 cards. Okay, that seems really bad. Like, by that point, by 4 turns from now, I think I'll have lots of random shit to discard. I'm going to play Bargain, sack the Lembas, and clear the way for my Hunter. We've seen Thorn, we've not seen Fangs yet. If they counter this, then I'm just going to jam Hunter and be reasonably happy about it. Lose focus, annul, Lorien revealed. I can just play around Lucy, right? 4, 5, and then have 2, yeah. Cast down is not that good. Annul is not particularly useful. Okay, I'll just take the Lorien revealed. Turn 13 already. And I'm not going to go tutor a land because I would have to discard a hand size, and there's not really anything that's just like a free discard here. Whoa, wait, did I not make my land drop already? I really thought I did. Okay. well, small misplay there. I should have tutored up a land and then played the Khalni Garden, but whatever. Mind Stab seems really bad. Maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe it's very good at, like, I could see it being good in the mirror, and then, like, you might as well bring it in here, but it would not be my first choice for sideboard tech. Okay, I'll go to the Forge so that I can put some counters on my plant token and have 2 attackers this turn, and then I'm going to kill their Terror. Killing their Terror here because I know they have the Annul in hand for the Tithing Blade. They can lose focus, I'll pay the 2. They can replicate, I pay the 2. They can replicate again, I pay the 2. Yeah, this is fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, then I just don't pay. Yeah, if they spend all of their mana, then I just don't pay. And then I use Tithing Blade because they didn't hold up their Annul. They don't play haste creatures. I'm good to swing for as much damage as I can here. I am the Hat Man now. I'm just going to try and keep the pressure up by flipping a blade here. Mind Stab comes down next turn? No, it does not come down next turn. It comes down the turn after that. Okay. Maybe if you have Mind Stab on turn 1, it would be solid, but I don't know. It seems very slow. I'm going to try and put as much pressure as I can on them so that I don't have to use up a lot of my clock. Hit them with the plant, and then force a counter spell with a Crypt Rats. Okay, Crypt Rats is in. Oh fuck, I mistapped my mana, didn't I? Well, pass the turn then. Yeah, I could add lethal this turn. I think I win regardless, but such is life. Terror number 1. So seeing Terror, lose focus, the island, go into the Archives, draw a card, and then deal 4. Alright, that's game. Relic did not seem very good versus what their deck is doing. It looks like they're only on Terror. Like, I didn't see any Blood Fountains or anything out of them. I think I'll go down to 1 Relic and bring in another cast down. We are a little bit behind on the clock. Sand is great. So I'm going to be pretty focused on playing for time, because if this game goes long, there is some possibility that the clock matters. Lorena Veiled Cycles, they're going to go get a land, getting an island, sure, which means they either already have a black source or they don't want to get a tapped land. Holding up counter magic this turn, sure. If they're holding up counter magic, I will just set up my mana, and yeah, that just 2 mana goes to waste there, sure. Bojuka Bog, exiling my troll, sure. I'll play a land and play my Lembas. If you want to counter a Lembas, I'm pretty happy about that. Lembas is worth a counterspell to them. Alright, Mind Stab is in the exile zone. I'll play another Lembas. This one resolves. Khalni Garden on top. I don't even miss a land drop. Mind Stab goes to 3 counters. I've seen this Isle played it already. Geist, sure. I can double Tithing Blade that. I think I'm just going to play Tithing Blade and then sack said Tithing Blade. Well, actually, I should probably sack the Lembas. Okay. I did this in the wrong order then, but such is life. Like, I just don't get to a huge amount of time to think about every play here, so sorry if I'm not narrating it. Defile their Stormbound Geist. Their Mind Stab goes down to 2 counters. I might be over-exaggerating the amount that clears here, but they've been missing land drops, which is very good for me. I missed 1 land drop so far. I'm just gonna sack my plant token here. See if I can mess up their mana more with a... Okay. Murmuring Mystic, Thorn of the Black Rose are both uncastable. Rotten Reunion is fine in their graveyard anyway. Removal spell. I can't take these as much as I want to. I'll take the better removal spell, which I think in this case is Extract Confession, and then apply to Lembas. Particularly helpful. So Mind Stab was going to come down next turn, but if they are missing land drops, I am not terribly worried about Mind Stab. So to minimize the effects of Mind Stab, I'm going to try and draw as many cards as I can here. I'll start with Reckoning's Bargain, sacrificing the Lembas, drawing 2 cards, found an Ichor Wellspring, she'll draw another card, and then that's another Lembas. And then I think I'm going to discard, okay, there's the Spellpierce. I think I'm going to discard Rats, and then could discard Rats, Swamp. Sure, going after the Lembas before it gets shuffled back in, I guess. Doesn't seem great, but whatever. Card, Rats, and Rat Swamp. Wish I'd kept the Rats now, but alright. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4. It wouldn't have been enough anyway. Alright, drawing a Swamp here. Do I want to flip my blade or do I want to kill the Terror? I think I just want to kill the Terror. Ward 2, I can just pay for that. Alright, they are aggressively exiling stuff from my graveyard. So I've seen Rotten Reunion. I've not seen the cast down, the Thorn or the Mystic. Gurmag Angular, sure, it's a good threat. I'll just duress them, take cast down, flip this, pass turn. I am behind on board here, but drawing to quite a lot of outs. They found the land so they can play out Thorn next turn, which is pretty scary. Sort of forces me to do something. I could just play out Hunter if they take the initiative back, but you know what, drawing a second Hunter, I think I'm sort of forced to do something here, so sure. And then hopefully eventually they spend their zombies. swinging in or something. Just swinging with the Geist? Or, okay, swinging with the zombie as well. I'll block the zombie to mitigate damage. So now they can't play out their Thorn, or I would take Monarch right back. They can play out Murmuring Mystic, if they so wish. They play the Swamp they tutored for. Oh, okay. They are taking the Monarch here. Interesting. They draw a card. I'm at 3 life, so I do need to stay aware of that. Alright, I'll go in and hit them. Take the Monarchy back, as well as the initiative. And I'm going to go into the Scry 2 room. Crypt Rats is fairly helpful here, but I'm so low on life. It's not that. Is there a way I don't just die here? So I play out Avenging Hunter, create a treasure token, look block. Okay, on the bottom, I think better off the Monarch. I don't know if I don't think I did. This block's here. Say I removals. I probably will play the. Alright, I'm dead here. I think I probably misplayed at some point this game. Maybe they'll forget to swing. But yeah, didn't go great. I'm gonna watch back through this game, try and identify where I misplayed, try to improve in the future. I think this game was winnable. Definitely game 1 I should have just mulliganed in my opening hand. Alright, on to game 3 then. Okay, going into game 3 of our league on the play with a hand that sweeps the board and then maybe plays out a Thorn. I think this is a really tough one because this doesn't really do anything particularly proactive, and if this is a control deck I'm playing against, I don't really want to be jamming in Thorn turn 4 and then having them just untap, kill Thorn, then play out their own Monarch creature. I think I'm gonna mulligan. This hand is not a lot better. I'll keep it. I'm gonna put back one of the rats and then I can turn 1 garden. This hand is good if I draw any sacrifice to draw effect. The other hand needed a sacrifice to draw effect and and something to sacrifice. I'm just going to use my Tithing Blade here because it's unlikely to be particularly good versus an aggressive Delver deck, because if they've got a lot of like creatures to go wide, plus that might be playing like a null effect. Alright, cycle Troll. I'm just gonna get a Haunted Mire because I hold up one removal spell regardless, and I don't get to play around Spell Pierce either way. They're going for an aggressive Brainstorm on my end step here. It's possible they have a Luring Reveal to shuffle on their upkeep, but if they don't, then this seems to insinuate that they're a very aggressive sort of version of this deck, which is what the Delver would imply too, is that this is an aggro deck. I'll get a basic Swamp. Drew a Lembas. I'll play my Swamp, play around Spell Pierce and the Lembas, and then just play with the Lembas. I don't think they would Spell Pierce a Lembas necessarily, but drew a Wellspring. I'll just keep playing on my things. This doesn't play around Spell Pierce, but okay, that's fine. Spell Pierce is likely to hit you at some point anyway, and I mean, I guess I could have passed to their turn. They play out a creature, I go to kill it, they Spell Pierce, I untap, then I get my Ichor Wellspring in, but Ichor Wellspring is not that important here, as I don't have a way to sacrifice it anyway. And if I do draw into a sacrifice to draw effect, I already have lots of sacrifice fodder sitting around. Another Brainstorm. They haven't shuffled since their last Brainstorm though, and it doesn't look like they've got another threat, so I don't think you play Delver if you're like a slow control deck, and I don't think you, well, I'm just gonna flip my blade and then chill. I'm not going to cast spells into 3 open mana here when, well, I mean, I literally don't have any spells that do anything anyway. The alternative would just be a sack to Lembas. Okay, they thought so themselves milling over a counterspell and a deep analysis, so they have effectively shuffled their Brainstorm, and they get to play out Terrorist for cheap now, and they have deep analysis. Alright, well, they're holding up counterspell mana. I think I just want to try and kill the Terror. 1, 2, 3, 4 swamps, so I do need to use this, and they probably have a spell. Okay, actual counterspell. And then I'll kill their Delver before they get to untap. Terror comes in, sure. I can jump block it next turn. Another Terror, alright. A third Terror, getting a little scary. But hopefully I find another Drown in Sorrow or a Crypt Rats, plus a Swamp to the board. I could play out a Thorn, but if they have any removal spell, that feels really bad. I'm gonna pass here. So this looks like a slightly more aggressive version of a traditional sort of Terror deck, where they've sort of, I don't think most Terror decks play Delver. So they're playing Delver, and they look pretty committed to the Thought Scour sort of plan. They might even play like foil and stuff, depending on how deep they are on the self-mill discard stuff. Still, I haven't seen foil in a while, until I see, like they might be playing Disrupt or foil or like weird stuff like that, but until I see it, I'm going to assume this is essentially just Tolarian Tarot with a Delver of Secrets in it. Are they going to Duress me here? Okay, I think I'm dead. Do I have an out? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. I don't think I have an out. I'll take my draw step. Maybe I'm missing something. Okay. I like Duresses, and I like Relics versus what they're doing. I don't think I need Weather the Storms. Troublemaker Ouphe doesn't seem useful. Fangren Marauder does not seem particularly useful. Blood Fountain seems too slow. Drown in Sorrow only kills some of their things, so it's probably out. Crypt Rats still seems good. If I can get up to 5 mana, I can play Crypt Rats, and then the next turn sack it to kill their whole board. I don't know if I want to be shaving Hunter or Thorn effects or not. I'd probably shave a Crypt Rats. and then 1 Hunter, and then just bring my curve a lot lower. Try it like this. On the play again, and this hand looks really good. As long as I can get my bargain to resolve, then I'm looking at a few more cards and can hopefully find more lands to play. I am going to turn 1 Duress here. Okay, they have an island, a brainstorm, a mental note. They can play the island, pass the turn, brainstorm on end step, then mental note themselves and set up the deep analysis. If I take the mental note, that stops that. Taking the brainstorm doesn't really stop that, and mental note is better at digging towards. Mental note digs 1 card deeper, so does brainstorm, but if you miss, then mental note doesn't like lock you while brainstorm locks you. So if I'm just trying to mess up their mana here, I think I just want to take the mental note. Okay, and it looks like they've brought in Murmuring Mystics, possibly from their sideboard, possibly was already in their deck as a main deck like sort of plan. They played the island. I think I want to play the Tithing Blade here just to keep velocity going. They did not draw Spell Pierce. If they brainstorm, no, they're not going to brainstorm end step without a shuffle. Okay, they drew into another land, so they have Counterspell up, but I can wait for them to tap out to play my Reckoner's Bargain. Another land. They've drawn pretty well considering they started with a 1 land hand. Then again, so have I, so I can't complain too much. I've hit a land every time I've needed to draw a land. They're casting a brainstorm here, and then let's see if they have a mental note or a thought scare to go with it. Apparently not. Into a Delver. Alright. I'm gonna play cast down. If they counterspell this, I'll just cast down again. Alright, they're not countering it. Sure. Sweet, another land. And then pass back. If they go for a deep analysis or something similar, then I can start. Okay, they are going for a deep analysis. In response, before they can draw into a land and have Spell Pierce up, I'm gonna sack this to draw 2. And then that can resolve. So that was the deep analysis. They found another land. I can Deadly Dispute around Spell Pierce here, so I will. And they have the Dispel, which is quite good. Alright, that was fairly likely to get me regardless. Flashing back their deep analysis and playing out a Delver of Secrets with Counterspell backup. Okay, I'm going to play around Spell Pierce by just using the Defile here, and they're fine with letting that resolve. Alright, found another land, but starting to run out of cards here. They're going for a Brainstorm. End-step Brainstorm with Thought Scour, sure. Milling over a cast down on a Gurmag Angler, which means that they put cast down on top. This implies to me that they still haven't found a black source. Okay, they have now. Here comes terror number 1. I am going to spend my cast down on this and pay the 2. They're going to counterspell it, sure. And then I can Tithing Blade. They counter that as well. I think I can't really, because if I kill the terror, then they Murmuring Mystic, and it's very hard for me to beat. But I do have to kill the terror though, because like there's just sort of forced into a position here where if I don't kill the terror, they're just going to hit me with it and then hold up counter spells. Okay, so now they have the Mystic. They no longer have any flashback spells in their yard, and they only have 3 cards in hand, so it's possible they just don't have the counter spell. Let's see if they have it. Okay, they probably weren't willing to spend it on that anyway. It's possible it's a Dispel or something similar. Alright, sack my Lembas, looking for Crypt Rats here, and they're rotten reunioning. Sure, still just looking for Crypt Rats. Not a Crypt Rats. Might be helpful, but we'll see. Murmuring Mystic is not a particularly fast clock yet, and they do only have 3 cards left in their hand, so it's possible I'm able to just like essentially like outgain life their Murmuring Mystic for a while. Okay, I'm just going to Duress them here so that I know whether my Wellspring is going to resolve or not. They have a Spell Pierce and an Extract Confession. I can play around both of these, but I think an Extract Confession is worse. Ichor Wellspring finds Avenging Hunter, which is not particularly useful here. But if I do find the rats, then I can do some stuff. They did not reveal off Delver, which means their hand is 1 non-creature, possibly a land, and an Extract Confession. If it is a land, they're unlikely to play it anyway because they would want to hold it for Brainstorm, so the fact they didn't play it doesn't actually tell us anything. I'm going to hold on to the Cottage just to bluff. Delver again, revealing Brainstorm this time. They are swinging with the zombie now. Interesting. And casting a Brainstorm, sure. Brainstorm into Deep Analysis. And then they can flash back the Deep Analysis if they so wish. Do not, which means that they have something worsting during my turn. Probably. Whatever it is, let's take it. Snuff out an Extract Confession. Extract Confession's a lot more limiting. 3, 6, 7. I'm dead next turn. In theory, I play a lot of sweepers. Did I cut a rat? How many rats did I cut? Oh, I cut my Drowned and a rat. Maybe that was wrong. But you live and learn. And hopefully draw. A rat doesn't even really save me. Yeah, alright. On to the next one. Alright, on the play in round 3 with green-black control. We'll take the play, and this hand looks wonderful. I can lead on a tapped Witch's Cottage. They've kept 7. I'll lead on a tapped Witch's Cottage, and next turn I'll get to play Ichor Wellspring, and then play Deadly. We'll draw 2 cards, each of those. 2 mana draw 2, Let me make it a little bigger, if that helps you guys read them. Ideally, I'll draw it into another untapped land. Okay, looks like we're playing versus Tron. There are effectively 2 Tron decks in the format. Playing my Ichor Wellspring, drawing a card. There is a combo Tron deck, which is difficult for us to beat, and there is a control Tron deck that's probably a little bit more popular, especially on MTGO when it's to click through the combo Tron deck. Okay, if I Deadly Dispute now, I'm going to have to discard a hand size, so I'm just going to do this at speed, and I'll also cycle a troll for land. They tutored up a mine, and they have a tower already. Right, there's the and a Chromatic Star is fine, and filter colored mana, and they use their Grotto to filter black and play out a Blood Fountain. This means this is probably the combo Tron deck, so I am going to need to create a bit of velocity here. I'm going to cycle for a swamp, and then go into my turn. I could just play out Crypt Rats. It's unlikely to be particularly good. I think game 2, this map gets a lot better when I have a bunch of artifact removal in the form of Troublemaker Ouphe, and Fangren Marauder is also pretty decent versus them. The way this deck works is they want to set up a loop with Ashnod's Altar and this card called Golem Foundry, I believe, that essentially you get a counter every time you cast an artifact spell, and so they're just drawing some cards, Rowan's Grim Search with Bargain, yada yada. Crop rotated to set up Kron. I'm not going to be narrating about this because I'm drawing effect. I'm going to try and explain what their deck is trying to do. So it gets a counter, their Golem Foundry gets a counter whenever you cast an artifact spell, and then you can remove 3 counters to make a 3/3 Golem. So essentially every 3 artifact spells is a Golem, and then they want to set up loops that let them cast a arbitrary number of artifact spells, so they can make like 40 or 50 golems. The only problem with this deck, and it really only comes up on Magic the Gathering Online, you know, this deck is really good in paper, but on Magic the Gathering Online it's very difficult to click through, so my opponent's clock is really going to matter. There's a Pauper YouTuber, I think, that does videos with, like, I think he does mostly Infect Storm and this deck, which are both underperform on Magic the Gathering Online, and he's pretty good at the deck, so if you want to look up content by him, I think it's the first thing that's going to come up if you look up Combotron. I'm going to look for something to do with my mana. Kind of whiffing here, but I don't want to have to discard a bunch to hand size. I'll discard the Drown in Sorrow. If they do go wide with a bunch of golems or something, the Crypt Rats is going to be able to clean it up. Not this Crypt Rats, probably a future Crypt Rats, because I'm sure they'll eventually find a remove for this. As you can see, they're very similar to my deck in the sense of, like, they use stuff like Deadly Dispute, and Rowan's Grim Search is effectively like a bigger Deadly Dispute. Okay, here's the Golem Foundry. Anyway, like I was saying, they use it to establish card advantage, and then they're just much more focused on a proactive plan than a reactive plan. So they have the Foundry and a Bauble, sure. So with 2 counters on the Foundry, they can make a Golem next turn, probably, if they cast any artifact spell. I'm gonna sack my treasure token. 2, 3, 4, 6. Okay. I was gonna put a counter on my rat and then start using it to ping them for 1 every turn, but instead I'm just gonna play at the troll. They're definitely favored game 1, just because they're a non-creature based combo deck, and like I said, that's during the deck tech, that is the biggest weakness of this deck. They've got a ridiculous amount of mana. There's the Ashnod's Altar. If they have a Mere Retriever, okay, so they can make infinite golems. I am going to make them play this out because the clock is very relevant with this deck, but I don't have any other responses for this turn, so I'll F6, and we'll see how long they combo. I'll sort of skip through stuff and mention it if something important happens, but right now what they're doing is they're using Ashnod's Altar plus 2 Mere Retrievers to put as many counters as they'd like on Golem Foundry, and with 2 Golem Foundries they're going to make lots of 3/3s and infinite colorless mana, and they probably have a way to turn that into a win. They've repeated the loop quite a few times here. If you're curious, holding up Cast Down for their combo turn would not have done anything, as sacrificing is part of the cost of Ashnod's Altar. It's not like you activate it, and then when their ability resolves, you sacrifice creature to add 2 color. Realistically, in the main deck, I don't really have any ways to interact with this combo. They likely have a way to turn this into... So they can remove the counters from the Golem Foundry to make infinite colorless mana, and then they can filter that for infinite colored mana through Energy Refractor. And then my guess would be that they have... Okay, they weather this storm to gain a bunch of life here. They might also have a way to deal infinite damage in the main deck. I don't know. Why is it giving me priority here? I don't have... I thought I F6. Oh, okay, it was just lagging. Oh, I'll swim with my troll. They're going to make 2 3/3s and block it. Oh, they're going to make as many 3s as they'd like, I suppose. I'll yield to them. So with the Crypt Rat, I can actually survive this for a while, unless they have a way to loop, unless they have a way to actually deal damage directly without relying on them to play with the Khalni Garden, and then the turn here. I could actually potentially survive indefinitely, depending on how long they're... Okay, they're headed to combat. 5 times 3 is 15, so this isn't even lethal. I'm just gonna chomp. And I'll yield till their end step. They're deck thinning with their crop rotation. Tutoring up more Tron lands doesn't really help because they already have infinite mana. Chromatic Star draws a card. They also have a blood token to draw with and a candy trail. All they're looking for at this point is there's like a enchantment I believe they play, the same one Affinity plays, that lets them sacrifice a creature or artifact to deal 1 damage to any target, which will kill me. But it's possible they don't play a main deck way to actually deal damage from hand, in which case I could actually win this game. So I'm not just playing for time, although at this point the main reason I'm continuing to play is just, alright, on their end step, I'm going to draw a few cards. There's a Blood Fountain, that'll be useful. Cycle Troll for a swamp. Unfortunately, I don't have his cottages left to get. Go to my turn, draw, play the land, and I'm going to pass the turn. I guess I might as well play out the Tithing. I guess I play Blood Fountain. And then it's the turn here. We'll see if they want to make more golems or not. I'll wait for them to go to combat with the golem. In response to them attacking their golems, I will ping everything 3. Holding priorities, then sack my Drats. Deal 3 to everything. And Bracketeer's Bargain the Crypt. This is sort of interesting because I would have thought they would have a way to deal damage from hand, but if say the bottom card of their library is the sacrifice a permanent to deal 1 damage to a target, it's possible they can get into a position where they can't win. I don't know. It'll be a little interesting to see whether or not they can actually present a win without combat damage. Red mana in the pool. Yeah, okay. There it is. So they can kill you now. We can go ahead and start looking at our sideboard. So Troublemaker Ouphe can come in. Fangren Marauder is fine, and I guess if they can't set up their combo but want to set up just like a make a bunch of 3/3s plan, it is a way to try and win, or try and prevent like what basically their alternate win con of just like make golems and attack instead of comboing. Relic is great and Duress is great. I don't think I want Fangren Marauder. I think I'm just going to bring in the Duresses, the Ouphes, and the Relics. And then for their sort of their backup plan, I'm just going to have the Crypt Rats still in, because the Crypt Rats also works as a threat. And then if I do win and we go to game 3, there might be an argument for me to bring in Weather the Storms just to try and play for time, but I don't know. I don't necessarily think that's actually correct in terms of like trying to win. So this all disrupts their combo in some way. So I'm going to find 10 cards to cut. Drown in Sorrow is the obvious thing that is an easy cut. And then all of the targeted removal feels pretty awkward. Was in this pile. That's like a clean 10 in, 10 out. I want to see if there's anything else that isn't really good. Crypt Rats is removal and a threat, and it can just sweep up like a board of golems. And I think I pretty much want everything else. So yeah, pretty straightforward. I don't think they like have a real creature backup plan other than making golems. That first hand in that I probably should have stopped and thought about it a bit more. I'll keep this. Put back one of the Thorns. This just draws a lot of cards quickly. Our opponent kept 6. I'll play out my Witch's Cottage tapped, and then next turn I can play out Wellspring, follow it up with a Dispute, start trying to dig towards some sort of interaction. Unfortunately, this is probably a bad matchup for us because it's such a focused non-creature combo deck, but, well, technical creature combo I suppose, but not vulnerable to removal. And that means that I'm going to have to rely on stuff like Collector or Troublemaker Ouphe to try and win here. Collector Ouphe is very much not illegal in Pauper, if only. Like, there's an argument for playing out Wellspring here just to be mana efficient. But I think I want my treasure as a green source for the... I keep calling it Collector. Troublemaker Ouphe. Yeah, Wellspring and a Bauble, but they don't have Tron, which is very good because without Tron, their combo is pretty expensive. Play a land, and I'm just going to jam Thorn here and start drawing cards. I don't think they have a ton of ways to take the initiative back, so it seems pretty safe to just put Thorn in play here and draw an extra card every turn. Really start digging for Duresses and more Troublemaker Ouphes. Rowan's Grim Search, bargaining away some artifacts. They're really churning through the deck fast here. Does this put the other cards into the graveyard? It does. Okay. They took something better than an Expedition map, a Polluted Mire, which is interesting, considering Expedition map would come Tron, so they're likely to have some other way to get Tron here then. Alright, Wellspring, get in there. Found another swamp. It's great. I'll play that out. I don't really want to have to discard a hand size, so I'll wait and... Well, I'm going to have to discard a hand size either way, but I have to like to avoid as much as I can discarding hand size. So I'll wait to their turn to play out the Deadly Dispute. They're churning through their deck more. Energy Refractor draws a card. Blood Fountain, sure. So this is the way for them to recur their creatures, as well as just loot. Scrying 2 off Candy Trail. It's pretty relevant how they scry here. With the game log 2 to the top. Okay, that's a little scary. Means they probably found something. Sacking some County Trails. Drawing and discarding. The thing is, if they just play with a Golem Foundry, then I'm pretty happy because I can kill it with Ouphe. But unfortunately, they might wait and try and do it all in one turn. It would be much worse for me. So I'm hoping I can find a Duress here. I am just gonna dig main phase here, because at this point, I really need to find a Duress. Alright, a Relic is also good protect. I have the treasures to sacrifice it if I need to. I will have to discard some cards to hand size here, but they don't really have an artifact that I want to kill, so I'll discard Blade and Swamp. I'm a little worried they might just have like some big colorless creature they bring in to exile a card in response to that, and then they might have the combo here. We'll see. Crystal Grotto, scry 1, scrying to the top, sure. Playing a Deadly Dispute, drawing 2. Really hoping they just like play out combo pieces without having the combo, just drop an Equinox Altar and kill it with. Alright, there's a Golem Foundry. There's an altar. I'm dead. We'll see, I suppose. And last card is Mirror Retriever with presumably another Retriever in hand. Alright, I can kill the Foundry, force them to make their 3/3s in response, and then if I draw a rat, I can sweep to the board. We'll see if they take the time to actually kill me here, or if they're just passing with a bunch of counters on their Golem Foundry, because if it's the second, then I can actually still win here by killing their Golem Foundry and then trying to get a second Foundry. Sure, things are not looking up. This is a sweet deck though, it's pretty cool. But they've got 2 Foundries and they do the loop, so my hope is they just don't have another card draw spell in hand and they pass back to me. I can kill both their Foundries and then try and survive the wave of creatures. After repeating the loop for a while, they're casting a Rowan's Grimsearch, which is going to draw them a card due to sacking Ichor Wellspring. Then they're going to look at the top 4, put 2 into their graveyard, or 2 and leave 2 life, which means that they've got a pretty good shot at just continuing to draw through their deck until they find a way to actually kill me. And they've got plenty of time on their clock to do so, but it's still possible for them to whiff here and be forced to pass the turn back, at which point I can Collector or Troublemaker Ouphe the Foundry if I top deck a Rats. Then I have an actual to win this game. So I am actually playing towards a potential win here. At this point, with this much time on the clock, I would probably concede if I didn't have an answer to infinite number of 3/3 golems, or an arbitrary, technically not an arbitrarily decided upon number of 3/3 golems. But for the purposes of the amount of deal, effectively infinite. If we somehow do win this though, and we go to a game 3, they are down to 8 minutes, which is, I mean, plenty, but they would force them to play fairly quick. They're sacking star cards. Dispute, sure. Alright, this is a 3rd Golem Foundry. This is pretty cool. Definitely one of the more interesting Pauper decks. But yeah, this is quite a lot of 3/3 Golem. The additional altar speeds up the combo quite a bit because they don't need to... effectively at this point they're making a 3/3 Golem every time they repeat the loop because they have 3 altars, right? Well, it's really more like every 3 times they repeat, they really get 3 golems. You know what I mean? So that's quite a lot of golems. Ugh. The question now becomes, do they have a way to actually deal damage to me, or is the plan just to pass back? The storm count has now hit 50. Very impressive. Lots of fun. Take a little nap. This deck's a lot more fun on paper because you can just say, like, I'll activate Mirror Retriever getting back this. I'll demonstrate that as a loop. Great, I will do that 999 trillion times, and your opponent will go, okay, you take 999 trillion points of mana burn, and you go, haha, very funny. And everyone laughs at your comedic genius. My opponent is down to 5 minutes, and it looks like they're just making a bunch of golems. This could mean that they have the kill in hand, or it could mean they're just putting a bunch of golems into play, and then they're going to pass the turn. If it's the second, then a Crypt Rats off the top, and 23 golems. Shame I don't have a Weather the Storm here. Going for the bluff of thinking I have Weather the Storm. Do they have a win that doesn't rely on damage? I wonder. They have like a non-damage based win condition. It's just, the thing is, there's not really anything that's like, there's no Lab Maniac or Thassa's Oracle and Pauper. It's just like a Fireball. Oh, Stream of Thought. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, well, I think I'm dead to this. Alright. Well, that was interesting. Didn't know they had Stream of Thought. I was hoping I would, the bluff on the Weather the Storm would win me the game. But yeah, they played around it. They have a non-damage based win con. Although I don't think they can win through. I guess if you give yourself Shroud or Hexproof, but I don't know if you can do that in Pop. Certainly be interesting. Okay, going into the final game versus Sisofo on the play with a fairly marginal hand. I don't think I can keep this. It's really slow. I like this. I'll keep this. Put back Troll. I already have a green source, and I'd rather play on effectively untapped lands, because of the Troll, you have to pay mana to get the lands, you're effectively getting a tapped land. Jagged Barrens, that's the new land that drains you for 1. This is probably Rakdos Burn. Interesting. I would like to find some life gain. Lembas is itself a little bit of life gain, but I'd also like to find card advantage and whatnot. Second Jagged Barrens, sure. And Voldane Epicure. Alright, I will play a land, and I think I just want a Tithing Blade here. Get rid of their creature. Next turn I can Wellspring into Offering if I... But this looks like either Rakdos Madness or Rakdos Aggro. Play Wellspring looking for a land here, and I miss, but that's fine. Next turn I can Offering and draw 3, and if I want to put a counter on mine. Looks like they have... Okay, they got a Demand Answers, discarding Alms of the Veins. They're going to get to deal 3 to me, and then draw 2. Seems good. The new, like, discard a card, draw 2 effects in red that have, like, an alternate cost, like sacrificing a land or an artifact, seem pretty good. Like, there's a new one from OTJ that's like, you may discard a card or sacrifice a land, and then it has a plot as well. I don't know how useful plot is, but the option to sacrifice a land seems good in like a Rakdos aggro deck. I've got another spell on my end step here. Okay, another Demand Answer is discarding Alms of the Vein. I'm not going to sack my Lembas quite yet. I find it unlikely that they can deal 10 damage with the amount of mana they currently have, and they would need to be able to do so at instant speed, which would rule out the 2-mana deal 4 effect in black. Okay, another Epicure. Seems good. If they want to go wide into the board, I have a Drown in Sorrow, and if they don't, I'm dealing 3 to me. And okay, Galvanic Blast. They have exactly 3 artifacts. So I would go to 2. I think in response to this, I am going to sack my Lembas. Because if I don't do it in response to this, then they can just pass the turn and bolt me when I go to sack it on end step or something. So I'll go to 5 and hopefully draw some life gain. But I have a few ways to dig for it here. Tithing Blade is just going to be too slow as a life gain method. I can try and hit a land off this map. Reckoner's Bargain, the gain life 1. I will not play Graveyard. And I will pass the turn with a untapped plant token to block. They are blasting me, sure. I think I'm probably dead here, as any burn spell, sacrificing or discarding a bridge 2. So I think the sideboard plan here is pretty similar to versus mono red. Just bring in a bunch of life gain. Duress is even worse here because if you discard like an Alms of the Vein, they get tested. So if you Duress them, on the other hand, it's like a bunch of madness cards. It's pretty bad. Kitchen Imp is not going to do it here. They're going to need something better. Kitchen Imp plus removal spell on the plant token will do it. And are your last 2 cards any burn spells? Looks like. Alright, yep, that's going to be lethal. So let's go to boarding and bring in 4 Weather the Storms. Fangren Marauder is a maybe. Duress is bad. Relic's bad. Troublemaker in particularly useful. They do have artifact lands, but I don't think that's enough of a reason to bring. And then for things to cut, Blood Fountain is not particularly good. And you can usually some number of Thorns. And then versus this version of the deck, I don't think they have a ton of ways to go wide. So I feel like I can cut 1 rat to bring in them. I'm happy about that. Pretty confident about this sideboarding. This hand's great. I have the Weather the Storm, I have Tithing Blade, I have some removal. This is one of the decks that didn't really get improved by OTG, the one I'm playing, the one they're playing, they got a lot. So it's a little bit interesting. I don't know if we're going to see green-black gardens become less popular as aggro decks get better at maintaining card advantage. I'm just going to cycle this for a swamp now to give them less information about my hand versus playing the swamp and then doing it at instant speed. Then they know I have a land for next turn. And I can still play a removal spell with Defile on pretty much anything I do here. And if it is anything without haste, then I can Tithing Blade out. Ooh, the gardens is nice here. Put a blocker into play. I can Reckoner's Bargain if I have to, but I'd rather get some life off. I'd rather get some life off the bargain, so we'll see. I didn't realize they were all the way in on Great Furnace. I don't know if I saw that last game or not. Maybe it would be correct to bring in some number of the oofs. I need to keep my velocity up here. As much as I want to wait to be able to sack my Tithing Blade to gain some life more substantially. They're discarding hand sides. If they have an Alms of the Vein, they can cast it. But they're definitely in an awkward spot here. Yeah, discarding a Faithful Looting. I'll Lembas first, so that they think I might be digging for a land. Another land is good though, because I don't have one lined up for next turn. And if they continue not to do anything, then I'm feeling pretty good. Daily Disputing away a token, sure. I think I can do better than 9 life off of Weather. Like, I'm just not really under any pressure here, so I can save that for the late game. It looks like they're trying to play for like the sort of the longer game here, drawing cards and whatnot. Deal 2, gain 2, sure. But I think it's unlikely that they're going to be able to keep up with the number of cards and the quality of cards that I'm able to draw. I don't get the life off of the Lembas if I do it this way. They're not really putting much pressure on me here. I'll play out my Tithing Blade just so I have something to sacrifice. I would have to discard the hand sides if I don't anyway, so. The longer this game goes, the more it favors me. Like, if they're just going to be sitting there filtering, like drawing and discarding cards, filtering up to like a perfect hand, then I'm gonna have lots of time to put like 2 Weather the Storms in my hand and just be near unkillable. I don't have anything I need to get back yet, so just do that, and then I'll play out the Crypt Rats so I don't have to discard to hand size, and pass through the turn. Destroy target artifact, deals 3 damage to that artifact. I do not have a way to sacrifice that map to right now. It can only be sacrificed at sorcery speed, so they are going to get 3 damage with that. But like I was talking about in game 1, I think, I don't think Smash the Smithereens is particularly good versus my deck. Like, here it was fine. It was essentially just a Lava Spike, since the map token is not particularly valuable. Vampire's Kiss, sure. I'm not letting it back Troll here. I have a Troll in hand already. I probably should have swung for one with the Rats. I'm a little too focused on narrating. If they have a Madness Haste creature, then there is some real downside. I'm sure at some point here they'll cast 2 spells in a turn, and then I can Fanatical Offering and actually get some value off my Weatherstorm, but I think there's a pretty big risk if I don't just do it now, because it'll be untapping me pretty low on life. I don't want to push my to luck too much. I think I'm going to do it here. Sacking this treasure, draw some cards, and then just do it for 9 life, or I could spend a removal spell, hitting my Rats, just to turn that removal spell into another Weather. Probably worth it here. Just gain as much life as I possibly can. And then next turn I can play out a Troll. I have Drown if they go wide, I have Tithing Blades if they don't, if they just put a creature into play. Just getting myself back up to a healthy life total here seems valuable. Essentially just turning my cast down and Defile both into a healing salve, like gaining 3 life. Another Deadly Dispute from them, and a Jagged Barrens for 1 damage, sure. Alms of the Vein, sure. They get to draw another card here, but I'm at a very healthy life total, so I'm not terribly worried about dying in the next turn. I can just jam a Troll of Khazad-dûm into play, but I don't think I want to do that this turn. I think I'd rather draw my card off Ichor Wellspring, try and find a land drop, or a Lembas. Found a Lembas, let's go use this, sack it to increase the odds of hitting another Lembas, and then if I don't, I can, a land is great. Next turn I can play a Troll if I don't draw anything better to do. I still have creature removal. It looks like they might have just sided out all of their creatures. In which case, I'm glad I spent my cast down on my Defile. If they did keep some creatures in though, I still have lots of removal, so I'm not terribly worried about creatures. But I still don't think it would be correct to side all your creatures, because then you don't have any repeatable source of damage. You're essentially limited to however much damage you can deal by casting every burn spell in your deck, and if your opponent gains more life than that, you're just dead. Like, you can't beat that. Okay, that was a really good draw. I can dig farther for more life gain. I did find my land drop already. I have Defile. I'm just gonna cast a Troll. I need to start closing out this game at some point. And this is like a very reasonable clock. And if they spend like 2 burn spells trying to kill it, then that's 2 burn spells that aren't pointed at my face. Although most of their burn spells have to point at face. Like Alms of the Vein, you don't get the option. Hit a creature with it. Fiery Temper can't hit a creature, but they don't have a lot of ways to discard 2 cards in one go. I guess Faithless Looting, they do have. We've seen one of it already, but they flashed it back, so it's already gone. There's an Epic here. Jagged Barrens. Maybe I should be cutting some of my creature removal versus what they're doing. I don't know. It seems like they're very light on creatures. I was expecting more than just like 4 Epicures and 4 Kitchen Imps. Sacking to draw off their Epicure is fine. And it looks like they're casting their burn spells while I can't, which makes sense to me. I'll go right through to combat and you for 6. They do have quite a lot of drain effects, so a lot of their life, or a lot of their burn also gains them life. I'm just going to sack the map token, draw 2 cards deeper towards life gain, or similar. Sack the map token again. I think the map tokens are worse than the treasure tokens at this point. And then play out a Lembas. If I hit a Weather the Storm, then I'm so far ahead and kill me. Although a land would also be good. That's alright. I can gain 6 life by sacking the Troll. Alright. Put that into my hand, go to end step, discard one of the Tithing Blades, unless they want up to play, in which case they discard a bridge, I'll discard Blade, and next turn I'll play Avenging Hunter and start beating down. Doesn't seem too bad. I just don't think they can gain enough life to beat Troll and Hunter. Like, just the Troll, yeah, maybe you can gain 6 life a turn, but I mean, it's a pretty significant clock. I'm just going to hold up Reckoner's Bargain on the Troll. Swing for 6 this turn, play out the Avenging Hunter, try and close out the game as quickly as possible at this point. I don't doubt that given enough time they will find a way to deal 17 more to me, possibly quite a bit more depending on if they can kill me in response to the Troll sack or if they have to do it after I get my 6 life. I don't know if what I'm saying is making sense. They're encouraged not to cast multiple spells in a turn because I could have Weather the Storm. Considering I've drawn most of my deck, they can probably assume I have another copy of Weather the Storm in hand. Now I happen to have gotten lucky and don't have it. I do have Reckoner's Bargain, potentially draw into a Weather, while also gaining me 6 life on the way through. So if they want to draw me down to a lower life total. Use spells here. I'll, at some point in that chain of spells, cast Reckoner. Though it would be difficult for them to kill me here, even if they do have a bunch of Madness burn spells in hand. Looks like they did keep the imps in, which makes sense. Maybe their only creatures are 4 imps and 4 Epicurus, in which case I might be able to shave down like 1 cast down or 2, but I'm not interested in taking 2 here. Now, can they deal 13 to me in response to bargain? I don't think so. But if I untap, then I get to hit with Troll again, so I'm actually incentivized to wait anyway. And it means that if they do go to try and kill me, like on my upkeep here, 11 plus 5, it's not enough to kill them, so I'll just go to the lost one for more Lembases. Don't know if that's the correct plural of Lembas. Lembases? Lembi? Oh no. Someone should really ask these elves about their lexical systems. If only Tolkien was a linguist. Do I want to dispute now? I think so. Okay, I found another Lembas and a Weather the Storm. Oh, I should have sacked it. Whoops. Never punished. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I can afford to bargain. I don't think I care about the life gain, just because I have 2 Weather the Storms in hand. And now I can okay, yeah, I can weather I think I just want to Weather the Storm twice here. I don't think I want to defile my own creature. They might be going to cast, they might be trying to kill me in response to the Weather the Storm here. In which case I can Weather the Storm a second. But I'll let all of my copies of Weather the Storm unless they want to interact with. There's no benefit to casting the second Weather in response to the first. But now I just get to gain 12 and then 15 life. Alright. Seems like a reasonable spot to concede. Do I want Troublemaker Ouphe if they're so low in creature? Like, do I want to cut 1 cast down for 1 Ouphe? Like, just having a 2-mana sinkhole effect is interesting. I don't think so. I think if I'm going to cut anything, it's probably one of the rats, because they just don't have ways to go wide. Then it's like, what am I cutting for? What am I bringing in for the rat? Is it just Troublemaker Ouphe? Is a 2/2 destroy a land so good that I want to cut a removal spell for it? I don't know. Because also, if they just don't play off artifact lands, there's really no good targets for Collector Ouphe, or Troublemaker Ouphe, and if I do Troublemaker Ouphe and they sacrifice the land to draw 2 in response, that's pretty backbreaking. Okay, I'm going to run it back the way I had it. Opponents on the play this time. This hand does not have any initial mana sources. I mean, arguably Troll is a land, but you need 1 mana to cycle him in the first place. Him? I don't know the gender. Troll of Khazad-dûm. It seems fine. I have multiple things to sacrifice. Well, I only really have a garden to size, so I'd probably just put back the cast. Having Weather in the opener is nice. Jagged Barrens is fine. It just means they're not leading on a turn 1 creature, which is better, I think. Like, I'd rather them deal 1 to me than have, like, a 1/1 in play. Canarium bouncing the Barrens is kind of cute, but okay. I was going to say if they're not using the mana for anything, then that seems great. But no, they do have some spells. All Deadly Dispute unless they cast, like, 2 spells this turn. If they do double spell this turn, I'll Weather the Storm and gain 9. Okay, it does look like they're double spelling this turn, so I'll Weather the Storm and gain my 9 life. And then next turn I can play a tapped land and Tithing Blade their imp. Like, I'm just pretty happy gaining 9 life off of this, and then that should be enough to survive to the late game when I can gain 12 or whatnot life off my next Weather the Storm, and I did draw another one right off the bat, which is great. I'm going to play the Tithing instead of holding up Deadly Dispute. And then going into my turn 4, I can Deadly Dispute and try and find a land, and then hold up Weather during their turn. Okay, they have Kitchen Imp and Fiery Temper, sure. So it would be nice to find some creature removal for the Kitchen Imp. They've got a black mana up, but that's not enough to sacrifice the Kitchen Imp to draw 2 cards in response to a removal spell. So I feel like it's unlikely they're going to, like, Deadly Dispute their Kitchen Imp in response. Well, that's a land if I don't hit anything better. Okay, I'll go get a untapped land and then Defile their Imp. I'm going to Defile their Imp before they untap, because if I pass to their turn, they're going to have the mana to sacrifice their Imp to something like Deadly Dispute. And I don't want them to provide them with a free thing to sacrifice. I'd rather they have to spend, like, blood tokens or something similar. Or ideally lands to cast their spells. Epicure is fine. I can play sack Lembas this turn. Ooh, Fanatical Offering would be good. Lembas digs just as far as Fanatical Offering does, though. Both look at 2 cards. So if I'm just looking for a land off Lembas, and I am going to sack it in response because finding another Lembas would be great here. And if I end up bottoming the card, I don't really want to shuffle my library. Okay, great. That's another land, which I'll play as my land for the turn. And then I can Fanatical Offering my Tithing. If they go for a Smash to Smithereens here, or just, you know, in general, it wouldn't be unreasonable just to draw 2. Although it would cost me my treasure. Flashback Faithless Looting, sure. If they go wide into this board with Kitchen Imps, okay, they just started 2 land. I was gonna say, if they go wide into this board with Kitchen Imps, I can clean everything up with Crypt Rats. I could gain 9 off of Weather the Storm here. And if I don't Fanatical Offer, like if I don't use my treasure here and I just untap, then I can try and set up an even larger Weather the Storm. I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put my Crypt Rats into play as a blocker after I Offering. Actually, I'll just use that removal spell. Look for a land first, though. I'm not going to sack the Lembas in response. There's a Marauder, great. That should close out the game. Next turn. It will cost me my treasure token, so if they just immediately kill my Marauder, that would be quite annoying. I could try and wait until I can find one more mana source. Oh yeah, Epicure's dead. They didn't have a sack they wanted to do in response. They're casting spells here, which might mean I'm dead, or it might mean they're casting their spells while they can because they don't want to play into Weather the Storm. It's probably the second one because I don't think you can deal 11 with 2 mana, 3 mana. Alright, looks like it was in fact the second thing. Mostly just because I don't want them to have removal for the Fangren Marauder right away and make it mostly useless. I am going to Fanatical Offering, or actually I should sack Lembas first, and then Offering, sacking the map token. Okay, I found a Troll, so I can cycle the Troll, get a tapped land. I don't have anything to do with my 1 mana anyway. If I get an untapped land, I guess I'm holding up Weather the Storm. That was probably correct, because the only way I really lose this game is if they kill me here. Yeah, alright, I probably misplayed there. I was probably supposed to keep up 1 on the green, just in case they do try and put like 14 damage on the stack here. Okay, 3 Galvanic Blast is lethal here, sure. 2 Galvanic Blast is not lethal. They can't. I think that's the most damage they can deal for 1 mana is 4. Alright, I'm going to play with the Marauder and then pack. Well, I'm going to sack the treasure token, or the map token as well, but mostly just because it's free. They should use their bloods in response. Deadly Dispute, sure. Always yield, always yes. And explore into a land, sure. I can gain 5 in response to stuff if I want here just by sacrificing the treasure token. And the very interesting thing is if they have a split second spell, I could still sacrifice the treasure token and gain 5 because treasure tokens are a mana ability. Although I don't think that matters. Okay, Alms of the Vanning Kitchen, Imp, sure. They know this is like the last turn they're gonna get where my life total isn't above like 25. So they're just trying to kill me this turn, I think. Or put as much pressure on me as possible so that I have to spend removal on things instead of just untapping and cycling a bunch of artifacts. Unfortunately, I only really have 1 artifact. This is Graveyard from play, yeah, so I can't flip the blade to gain life. Alright, I'll start with a Tithing Blade. If they sack this in response, then I can weather the storm, and gain quite a bit of life. They did not sack it in response. I'm gonna go to combat every 5. If I want to hold up double Weather the Storm, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, I can play out Crypt Rats and then Weather the Storm, and then if they try and kill me in response to it, I can Weather the Storm again. I should probably just Weather the Storm again here, because I don't think I'm going to get a better chance than having a storm count of 3. So now I get to sit at 36 life, which is a very healthy life total. Yeah, they're just done. Alright, well that was the league. I did go 2-3, so not the best league, but I think I made a few misplays in Game 2 and Game 3. I think Game 4 versus the combo Tron deck was... Well, maybe I should have cycled some of my, maybe I should have more aggressively drawn cards looking for like a Duress or to put 2 relics in play, but I think part of it is just that was a very difficult matchup for us. But I think Game 2 and 3 were potentially winnable if I play better. And then, yeah, part of the reason I record these games is so that I can look back through my own footage and try and improve as a player, which I think is useful. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed watching. Remember to press all the interaction buttons so that the algorithm likes me more. Because I have a parasitic relationship with the algorithm where I think it's my little friend. What else? That's pretty much it. Yeah, thanks for watching.